Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. The American dream has been alive for generations. The dream that one can put down roots and chart their own destiny free of government interference. You can, the idea goes, accomplish whatever you want when you reach the American shore. And for many, that dream has come true. For others, for any number of reasons, not so much. But how many of us can trace our family's past to when they first dreamed the dream? Well, our guest, Heinz Bartesch, can, and he's written about it in his book, Take It Where You Find It: The American Dream, Earned and Stolen. Welcome, Heinz, from
Thank you, Paul. Great to be
Petaluma,
here.
California. Tell us a little bit about Petaluma. It's north of San Francisco, yes?
Yeah, it's actually north of Marin County. I lived in Marin County for 16,761 days and just recently moved to Petaluma.
You keep track of
Petaluma,
your days too, huh?
yeah. Well, with ChatGPT and Google, you can just ask, how many days between this date and that date, and it'll tell you. So that's how I know.
Well,
But anyways,
I did it the hard
Petaluma,
way. I did it the
yeah,
hard way. I'm 26,542nd day. But anyway, go ahead.
okay, gotcha. Petaluma is the first town in Sonoma County.
Oh,
So it's just north of Marin County, and it's the chicken and egg capital of the world, so to speak. I used to tease my ex-wife when we were having kids. I said, living in Marin, I said, if we have any more kids, pretty soon we'll be living in the chicken farm in Petaluma. And the irony, here I am in Petaluma, but it's a great fun town. There's a lot going on.
well, let's talk about your book. It's not just a
Yeah.
family memoir, but really a history lesson, which stems from people asking you the question, where are you from? They saw
Yeah.
your name and they said, where are you from? So, in a nutshell, where does the story begin?
Well, the story begins in Transylvania, Romania. I had thought about writing the book earlier decades ago, and I always started with myself in Chicago. And I said, no, wait a second, the story needs to be told from its root,
Mhm.
basically. And that's where I started. Both my parents were from different villages in Transylvania. Transylvania at the time was a very rural area, right? And they maintained their own culture, the Germanic culture, if you will, for 800 years, 700 years or so, and until the end of the war. And at the end of the war, near the end of the war in 45, the Russians were coming in and purging all the ethnic Germans from Eastern Europe,
Mhm.
Romania, Yugoslavia, and et cetera, the Eastern Bloc, right? So there was a mass exodus of ethnic Germans, not just Siebenbürger Saxons, but Donner Schwabs and others uh, that had to flee, and they flew to uh, Germany and Austria, the only place that they could go, type of thing.
Mhm.
So, they were Germany and Austria at the time was devastated by the war as well, right? And really didn't couldn't consume all of these migrants that were coming in. So they formed refugee camps and lived in a refugee camp for 10 years. The first few years were very difficult times, and eventually times got a little bit better. But it was my father's dream to come to the U.S. He wanted to come to the U.S. because it's the land of opportunity, right? So I I admired him for the courage to take two little children to go to a country where you don't know the language, you don't know what you're going to do, but it's the American dream, and we see that replayed on a daily basis. It's never stopped, has it?
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Well, you're well versed in it now, but up until you were about 16, you, like most teenagers, you were pretty much unaware of your family's history. What inspired you to dig deeper?
Well, when the Office of Special Investigation uh, in the Department of Justice went after my father to prosecute my father to try to deport him. Uh, that was a little bit of awakening, if you will.
What were they?
But
What were they?
to be
What?
honest with you, I was always aware of the Siebenbürger Saxon heritage because, like a lot of ethnic communities in the U.S., they stuck together.
Hmm.
So we had Siebenbürger Saxon picnics and parties and all that. So I stayed close to. I knew of the heritage, In fact, when I was 16, we went back to Transylvania. My parents took us back to Transylvania, and, so I got a taste of it then as well.
What was your father being deported for?
Yeah,
Trying.
well, sure, and then there's the crux of the story. It's a difficult story too to tell. My father, when he was 16, he was the fourth of five boys born on a farm, and when he was 16 in 43, Hitler needed every able-bodied person, right? So he was conscripted into the SS, right? And so he served in the SS for 2 years. For part of that time, he was a perimeter guard at Mauthausen. Okay, he never set his foot inside the camp. Okay, he was just a perimeter guard, and so in 19 he couldn't, because of he was in the SS. He could not immigrate until 1953. The U.S. Congress passed a Refugee Relief Act, so they made it legal. They said it's okay for even SS members to come to legally immigrate to the U.S. So he applied for immigration and was able to immigrate. Moved to Chicago. Okay, then in the late 70s, I believe it was 79, the Congress passed the Holtzman Amendment, which created Public Law 954, I believe, which created the Office of Special Investigation, which was the official Nazi hunter unit of the Department of Justice. So what they were able to do, because the way the law was written, they were able basically just to go after anybody that they feel persecuted another people, anybody based on religion or whatnot. And because he was at perimeter guard at Mauthausen for about 3 weeks, that he was not a man of moral character. They basically said, hey, you're not morally fit to be a U.S. citizen, which, you know, they never bothered to check, what kind of life he lived for the 32 years he was here, right? And I have volumes and volumes of testimonies, letters that were written by friends and other people speaking of his morality, if you will. So, unfortunately, the way the Holtzman Amendment was written, he's charged under civil law, which means you don't have right to a defensive attorney, um, and other due process, if you will. So we found out from all the other cases that the OSI was prosecuting that there was no way to win. Okay, that this was not a matter of justice. It was a show trial, a witch hunt, if you will, to expose Nazis and get them out of the country, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony is, my father was never a Nazi. He never joined the political party. He was not a avid Nazi. He was just a kid that was caught up in a world war, and so he was forced to leave after 32 years.
Well, you have some harsh words to say in your book about the DOJ, the Department of Justice,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how has that informed your opinion about media and government?
Yeah. Well, I learned the hard way, if you will. Okay, that I don't believe anything that comes from the media or from the government. Okay, that I question everything that I hear on TV and everything that I'm told by a politician. And I found that the more I question, the more I realize I need to question it, because it's a lot of it is not true. It's if not true, if it's not outright false, it's certainly colored, and it's certainly colored as such to make it questionable, anyways. And yeah, so
Well,
that's
it's
where
an
I'm at.
interesting title, The American Dream, Earned and Stolen. What do you mean by earned and stolen? Maybe.
Well, yeah, sure. My father, he knew what the American dream was. I mean, everybody had heard. Okay, America's the land of opportunity, right? So he dreamt of making a home here and a future for his family, because there wasn't really one in the refugee camp, right? So he wanted to come to America. A lot of the refugees, some of them, because there were hundreds of thousands. Okay, some of them wind up staying in Austria and developing communities there. But a lot of them, a good portion of them, left for either the U.S., Canada, or Australia. And my father was one of those. So, he came here and with two kids in tow, became a janitor. We had at one time 12 buildings that we were taking care of. My mother cleaned apartments, just like, Hispanic immigrants and other immigrants do these days. When you come here and you don't know the language, you work hard to make ends meet. And they did. They had a comfortable life. They had a summer home in Wisconsin, and life was. He was getting ready to retire when we got a knock on the door from the Office of Special Investigation and said, "Oh, by the way, you have to leave."
Hmm.
You know.
Well, how much
So,
does reconciliation play throughout the book?
well, hopefully a lot. Hopefully that's the entire thing. If people will read through to the epilogue, you'll see that my intention is not just the book is really a family legacy. I want it to be a legacy for not just my children but my children's children, and in the future, because with with people of looking back at genealogy and history and stuff like that, the interest and all that's available now. I realize that if generations that come just say, "Yeah, I want to find out about my family history," and they were to like Google my father's name, all they would get is the media reports from the Office of Special, the mainstream media on the Office of Special Investigation, and all the crimes, the Holocaust, and all that, and just associated him with them. And so I said, "Well, wait a second, uh, they need to know the truth." So that's why I said, "Okay, well, somebody's got to tell them the truth." And I guess it had to be me.
Hmm. And you've got some inspiration from the uh, Northern Ireland, the singer Van Morrison.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
me about that. You're a big fan, I know that, but how has he inspired you towards this book?
Well, yeah, Van Morrison is just always sung songs that spoke to me wherever I was, in my journey through life. And I remember at the time when Wavelength came out in 1979, I heard this song, "Take It Where You Find It," and I thought, "Oh yeah, it's a good song," like many of his others. And then later on in the years, when I re-listened to it, I said, "Oh well, wait a second. He's singing about my father's journey, or a lot of people's journeys, about looking across the sea and dreaming of America, and here we go. So I said, I named the book after that song title because it spoke to me. I said, okay. My
Well,
sister suggested, well, that's a strange title. You shouldn't do it. You just call it The American Dreams or The Stolen. I said, well, yeah, but
no, I like the
uh,
title.
yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah.
No, that's a good one. You may have answered this already, but what are you kind of hoping that readers will take from this? Why should they buy the book in the first
Mhm.
place? And what do you
Okay.
hope to get out of it?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you by the people who have read it so far, who have
Mhm.
told me, said, "Oh my goodness, Heinz. Okay, I had no idea. Okay, one, I had no idea what your family went through. Okay, and I had no idea how corrupt the government was, or could be, can be,
Mm.
and was in your father's case, type of thing." So I think just to open up people's eyes that, hey, what I hear and see on television is not always the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Far from it, type of thing. But also to understand that we are all really one. I'm a big well, I believe I'm Christ centered person, and I do believe that we all um, are one and the same. As a yogi, we use the word namaste. The light in me recognizes the light and the divinity in you. Type of thing, and I'm a firm believer of that. And I think that uh, if people all believe that, if they woke up to that, and I see it's happening. I have a feeling that that it is happening in society. That if people can wake up to that, then guess what? All this division and strife is going to disappear.
Well, we can hope.
We can hope, yeah, we
The-
can hope, and we can be the change that you want to be,
There
that you
you
want to
go.
see.
There you go. I've
Yeah.
heard that before. The book is Take It Where You Find It, The American Dream Earned and Stolen. It's available on Amazon. Where else can they get it, Heinz?
Barnes and Noble. Okay, you can buy it directly from me from books.by Heinz hyphen Bartesch. And it's going to be on Apple and Google Books soon. And we're working on an audio edition for those people who don't like to read, who just like to listen.
There's a lot of them
That's
out
going to
there.
happen. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been told that. So, I have to pay a little bit extra to get it on audio, but it's going to be on audio soon.
Well, Heinz, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking with you from Petaluma, California.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
You bet. And thank you, folks, for spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden, and we'll see you next time.